Welcome to Agents of Revenue, the revenue obsessed podcast where we talk about all things agentic and all things revenue. I'm your host, David Walker, co-founder and CEO of Spara, and my guest today is exceptional, former LinkedIn sales leader, former head of sales at Hopin, which was acquired by RingCentral, and now the senior director of sales at Deel. He's incredible, and he is definitely revenue obsessed. Welcome, Jeff Ruby.
Thank you for having me.
So, Jeff, we love people who are revenue obsessed. You are one of those humans. It's fantastic. What does revenue obsessed mean to you?
Yeah, well, it comes with the title, right? But why I'm revenue obsessed is I really look at revenue as the driver of the business, right? And it's my job to make sure that we're getting not just any revenue, but good revenue coming to this business. And in return, the selfish reason is, and I tell my teams this all the time, is my job. All the decisions we make are to help the company make more revenue. The company's making more revenue. You'll make more revenue. That usually resonates pretty well with salespeople.
I love it. So give me the quick background. So you're at Deel. Fill us in on what Deel does, and maybe tell us just a quick overview of your role and what you're focused on.
Sure. Yeah. Maybe we'll start with what Deel does. So we're a global HR platform, right? That's going to, let that we operate in 150 different countries. You can run payroll, manage compliance, handle everything from benefits to time off in 150 different countries, all in one platform. So it's really an HCM platform built for global dispersed workforces. And what that means for us, so I lead mid-market sales, which we categorize as any company that has 200 to 2,000 employees. So these companies are an interesting space where they're sophisticated enough to need a lot of our tools, but not large enough yet where they may be stuck in some old enterprise-y type of ways. We really see this as a very, it's one of our fastest growing segments, and it's very dynamic in the type of customers we get to speak to.
Love it. And Jeff did not know this before right now, but we do use Deel at Spara. So, we're fans.
Good.
All right. So, Jeff, you've been at Deel for 2 years. You have excelled. You've been promoted. I'd love you to walk us through a recent project that you were focused on.
Sure.
And something where you went and created change.
Yeah, absolutely. To give a little context, I was the first director of sales in the mid-market, right? So there was no one here kind of leading this org. It was doing great, but it needed some guidance. Whenever I step into a role like this, first it's sit there and not make any drastic changes right away. Let's look back. Let's see what's going on here. And I'm a big fan of no pun intended, small changes for big results, right? Or a big impact. I think if you make a big change, a drastic change, it can actually stall things. So I look for what are the small changes that I can make to lead to a big results or a big impact, right? So the thing that I noticed, David, is it was really when it comes down to pipeline, right? And specifically outbound pipeline. I look at pipeline here as there's basically 4 buckets, right? You have marketing, you have SDR, you have partnerships, and you have AE self-source pipeline. If you rely on marketing, that depends on campaigns, cycles. It usually takes longer to see results. SDRs, you're usually depending on headcount, rep ratios, and partnerships, which are great, but they depend on exceptional relationships. All those things are great, and those are parts of my job, and I can influence them. What we can change is our own, pipeline or our own outbound strategy. So we were lucky enough that we didn't have to have a strong outbound, strategy because we got a lot of inbound, and we're lucky enough that we still get a lot of inbound. But when I look at things that we can make a small change and to make a big impact, that's what stuck out to me. And what do I mean by a small impact? So I had a goal for myself of I believe that we could double our pipeline. So going from we were doing about a little shy of $100 million in pipeline ad. I thought in just over a year we could get that closer to 200 million, right? And that sounds big, hairy, audacious. But what I found out was, and I did it this simple way. I looked and I said, how many activities did we actually do that generated X amount of pipeline? And I looked at it and it wasn't an egregious amount. It wasn't something I said, well, you can't just say double it, right? But what I noticed was if we just crank that up 10 activities per day, and that's not 10 calls, that's not 10 email, whatever you want to do, just look at the ratio. Let's crank it up 10%, right? And that would generate enough change to have a pretty big impact, right? So that's easier said than done. So I looked at it, put it in 3 buckets. First was, let's just change the volume. Can we get up to doing X amount of activities per week? That alone will raise our pipeline. To do that, though, it's not just say, go do it. The next bucket you have to think about is consistency. How do you not just tell people to go do it? How do we be consistent to do that? And now, and only now, it took about a year, we now can go to refining it, right? Now we actually don't just have to keep doubling and doubling and doubling activity. We're doing the right activities. Now let's get, especially with all the tools out there, let's refine our process and potentially even do less activity, but we can be more targeted how we do that activity.
Oh, that's awesome. I am a huge believer in focusing on leading indicators and not lagging measures, right? And it takes a leap of faith, right? And I think this is one of the challenges that a lot of leaders face, right? What you
Yeah.
started with here is actually a pretty bold statement, which
Yeah,
is,
right.
hey, we're going to go achieve this insane goal by increasing pipeline from 100 to 200 million in 1 year. And the way
Yep.
we're going to get there is just super little things that we're going to do every day.
That's right.
That the leap of faith, right? That the activities are going to lead to the result is important, and commendable, because honestly, most people sort of don't have the stomach for that, right? And they want to say, okay, we're going to do the sweeping
Yeah.
change. We need to re-architect. We need to redo territory mapping. We need to restructure teams, right? The sort of the activity needs to feel commensurate in scale.
That's
with
right.
the desired result, and that's not actually always the way to drive revenue.
That's right. And I think, what I opened with was, the decisions we make are for the company to make, more revenue. Ultimately, I tell my team, any decision I'm going to make, it's not just to put extra weight on your plate, anything like this. It's all going to lead to you making more money. I've never seen a team or an individual fail if they have more pipeline. So I'm very aligned with what you said.
Yeah. Okay, that's great. So let's unpack that a little bit, right?
Yeah.
So you set this audacious goal. Did you state this goal to the team at the beginning? Did you say, "Hey, we're shooting for the top of the mountain. Trust me, though, I'm going to help you take the next step, and then the next step, and then the next step"?
That's right.
Or did you sort of start walking and say, FYI, look how far we've gone. We're heading to the top of this mountain.
I kind of started with the end, right? So the end part is actually the revenue part. So if we did all this theoretically and everything changed, our close rates stayed consistent, we would book about an extra $8 million a year doing that, right? So if you start with that, the mouth starts to water. How are you going to get there? Big number, 8 million. Next slide, 10 activities a day. 10 extra activities a day get you to do that. Now, again, that's still easier said than done. So as I mentioned, those three buckets where it's volume, consistency, refine. The volume is like for me to do. I figured out the math there. The consistency is where it came next, and I'm very open and honest with my team. I said, hey, I'm gonna be a little annoying over the next couple of weeks. So what it looked like was we had these goals of X amount of activities per day, per week, per month, per quarter. So every single day, at the end of the day, I would put down who hit the activity metrics, how much pipeline we created, and slightly jab about maybe some people who didn't get there, right? And I would do that every single day. And at the week, I would do a digest and throw out some highlights and some lowlights, if you will. Now, it's one thing to just say to your teams, go out there and start calling more and doing more activity. I think it's my duty to also provide them with tools and help them do so. So I tried to spoon feed it a little bit. So every Monday I would start with a prospect starter for them. Hey, here's an idea, right? Sometimes I build out a full sequence. Sometimes I just put an idea out there. So I helped people take the first step. That's what drives then the consistency. And that took, David, months, honestly. Now and then I started to kind of wean off of it, right? And they would get an email at the end of, or a Slack at the end of the week saying, here's who hit, here's who didn't, here's how much pipeline. But I have a big, hairy dashboard that tracked what type of activities everyone was doing. And that's not because I wanted to micromanage. It's so we could actually pull things out of there and say, David, it's great you're hitting the consistency part. But did you realize that what's hitting the most for you is LinkedIn messaging? So keep doing the consistency, but just switch to LinkedIn messaging versus calling. And that dashboard is something I would reference and show. So I it became like a joke. I told them I'm going to be annoying about this. But again, the only reason I'm being annoying about it, $8 million in ARR, right? Yeah. That's it. And now I'm not sending any emails. It happens. We're hitting it. I look at the dashboard every once in a while just to, pat myself on the back. But it's happening. It's ingrained. Now we begin to refine.
Yeah, that's really cool. All right. So big goals, show the top of the mountain, show the first step. put up a scoreboard. I love that,
Yep.
and I also like that you included both the leading indicators and the lagging measures on the same scoreboard. I think
Yep.
often those two things are tracked separately, which is the wrong way of thinking about it.
Mm,
And I've seen that myself in my business. Right, is when I look at a
sure.
scoreboard a lot. At first, it feels like it feels like a challenge, right? It's sort of an in-your-face challenge, and then the more you execute and track against those that scoreboard, the more it just you don't even think about it, right? And
That's
it's
right.
just it's a reminder of the progress you've made. So I love hearing that. Tell me a couple um, of the tactics that your team has been using, whether they were your idea or I'm guessing your team has come up with some incredible ideas that they're also sharing, right,
Sure.
and surfacing amongst each other to leverage AI to help hit that goal, right? Where are you seeing the biggest
Yeah.
value?
And it's interesting. I kind of implemented this, 2000, 24 and 24, 25. And even it's only, a year and a half ago, the tactics have completely changed. Right. And I almost think of like if I rolled it out again, I'd probably be look and feel a little different. Right. So, we take AI here at Deal very seriously to the point where we all have Claude, we all have credits, and you're responsible almost for using them. So
Mm,
I look at AI right now is like it came at a perfect time. I mean it's been here for a while, but like it really kind of came to the forefront at a perfect time because we were just getting past the consistency stage, and like now it's time to refine. I look at like whether you want to say refine or efficient, probably go hand in hand. So what we're using our tools to make us ourselves more efficient, right? We've invested in some tools, but also some of the best tools we have, we built ourselves, right? Whether that's better ways to understand, David when I reach out to him, right, and his company, what they're doing, better understanding what's happening, in David's industry. Whether it's, I think a big problem is spending time on things that you shouldn't be, right? So we
yeah.
spend a lot of time talking about how we tier our accounts here, right? And so we've used AI to really dive deep into tier accounts to making sure that we're spending time on the accounts that are going to give us the most revenue.
Yeah, I love that. You mentioned the refining bit too. I think there's a lot of I see a lot of teams trying to jump very sort of directly to how do I use Claude or how do I use this other tool to write me a better outbound email.
Right.
And sure, right? Like, of course,
Yeah.
yeah, that makes sense. I use AI to write most things I write today,
Sure.
right, as a thought partner to get me to a faster and better place. But the ability to leverage agents to help you refine and actually understand what you've been doing is a secret weapon that I think
Yeah.
most companies haven't realized yet, right? And so
Yeah.
the ability, as humans, we're actually quite bad, I found, at assessing our strengths and weaknesses. Like I
I
ask,
agree.
myself, when I look at myself and I look at my work and I think, what was driving value and what wasn't. And then I, use Claude to help me understand what was driving value and what wasn't, or reps on my team. We're all often surprised, right?
Yeah.
And so that's a really interesting piece. I'm curious how you're using AI or agents to help the refine process.
Yeah. I think you're right. And I'm a pretty firm believer, David, of I believe we can get a lot better at our strengths and our weaknesses. Yes, we should not just, put them to the side, but like you can't get fundamentally that much better at those, right? So that's where I would be looking to use AI. I think AI will level the playing field, if you will, on like the IQ part of business, right? We all have access to the same amount of data now in thinking, and it's how we use that, right? So a lot of ways I mentioned, but another thing we do, David, is we're making sure that it's not. We started with just go play with AI. I think that's really important, and you should because it's scary. And I think if I said don't just play with it, go build something, that's a whole different conversation. So
Mm-hmm.
kind of again, it goes back to like crawl, walk, run. Go crawl, just play with it, use it to write emails. It ends where your imagination ends, right? Now we're getting to a point where we first of all we know who's kind of at the cutting edge of it, right? And we know who's not. So, I was just talking to someone today about let's create a kind of AI council, right? And refine this a little bit. So back to refining is we've built a million cool different trinkets and tools, right? What are the 3 or 4 bets that we want to bet on that we could actually really build for and put some real resources behind it, and not just make it a cool little thing that I can, put in a Slack channel and some people will use, but like defining what that looks like, using those tools, tracking it, and refining it as we go. So
Yeah.
it's everything from deal reviews. It's helping us forecast. We're putting in every single gong call, every email, you name it, into and really getting a better, accurate forecast. Deal reviews have been just so much more efficient and effective. Those are probably the 2 biggest needle movers we're seeing. Other than it's writing better emails for us.
Sure.
I know everything about David and his business, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, it's embarrassing to admit, but one of my favorite agentic skills that I have running is one that just reminds me where I've dropped the ball in my inbox.
Sure.
It's so basic, but if I might have missed 1 to 2 emails a week, right?
That's right.
That's 100 dropped balls a year. That's really, really meaningful. So I love this sort of balance of, looking at all the things that we could do with AI and actually saying, okay, what really moves the needle? And it could be something hard and complicated, like, doing really deep deal reviews, right? Like that's something that just was so fundamentally impossible before we had really good LLMs, and is so easy now. And then, little things like don't let me drop the ball in my inbox, which frankly I could have done 5 years ago and 10 years ago with just, a better lack of weakness there. But the reality is I'm probably not going to actually fix that in my personality. And, great, I can supplement that. But, for me, that really moves the needle. Whereas, Daniel on my team, I don't think he's missed an email in 10 years.
Yeah.
Right. So great. He's gonna have something else.
I'm like an email 0, Slack 0 guy. So yeah.
Good for you. Good for you.
There's lots of other things that I'm not good at. So
that's why I'm not qualified to be a rep on your team.
Yeah, that's it. That's the only reason. That's it.
It's dropping the ball. So let's come back to this project. So you had this 100 million. You're at 100. Goals to get to 200. Did you hit the goal?
We did. We did. We went from. Well, we didn't get quite to get to it. We'll be at 200 this year. 2024 was about 93 million. We did nearly double it at 184 in 2025. We don't get to just continue to double and double and double. Like again, like this is now like the refining it and even getting deeper into it of David of like we even just 3 years ago at Deel we had 1 handful of products we're selling. Now we have, I need some extra hands and feet, right? So now we're looking at like what type of pipeline we're generating and what type of pipeline is best for, as I started with, the best ARR, the best margin, things like that. So we're beginning to refine that now. But it hasn't stopped in the sense of every quarter, we have a goal of how much pipeline each person should hit, right? So it's about $1.5 million in pipeline. Some people are shooting over it. Some people you don't get there. That's okay. But we always still have the North Star every single quarter. That KPI has not changed. It will not change of a certain pipeline add for every single rep on the team.
That's awesome. I also want to point out something that I think would be easy for our listeners to overlook. Probably the more senior sales leaders have already picked up on it, but I do find that sales tends to be very individual focused, and we forget the power of telling a team of people, despite the fact that they have individual quotas, right? And they are incentivized individually to maximize comp, of putting out, hey, as the mid-market team, here's our holistic and global perspective in the next year, and here's the target we're going to hit, and we're going to do it together, right?
That's right.
I think it's pretty powerful. I think we undervalue human psychology sometimes, particularly roles that just have very binary sort of performance equals comp. That's important to have alignment there for sure. It's probably the most important, but that's sort of fulfilling the basic roles, right, of a good sales team, good sales structuring. But that the collective power of people working together towards a common goal, I think, is easy to overlook.
I agree. My team knows, like, one of the things that I expect is the ability to make decisions with the company in mind and not people's interests or egos, right? So we're all driving towards the goal, right? And some are going to benefit it from more than others. But if we continue to double pipelining, generate more pipeline, and close more deals, Deel continues to grow and grow and grow. You're not going to remember about that one quarter 6 years ago that you didn't do this or that deal got taken away from you. Like, if Deel becomes $100 billion company, we'll all be just fine. And that's kind of the mindset I want to get is we should all think with our CEO hat on, not an individual contributor or a manager or a director or VP, whatever that means.
Yeah, well, don't go too far. I've heard CEOs tend to forget to respond to emails sometimes. I don't advise
Not
too
anymore.
much. Yeah, exactly. Not anymore. Right. Correct. Okay. I want to look forward.
Yeah.
So there's a lot you're doing. It sounds like you're in a process of you're in the refined process on the pipeline goal. Great. And it sounds like you're also in a bit of a refined process on how you use AI and AI agents within your sales team. When you think about the next 6 to 12 months, what are you most excited about?
Yeah, it's like excitement and scared. I feel like every day I get so it's like can't wait to see where we go and what we do, and then I'm like, well, this is scary. I'm not scared about like putting myself out of a job or anything like that. I think if that happens, some part of me thinks that's really exciting. But I think, David, anything I'm thinking about as it comes to AI, it all goes back to like refining that process. And like theoretically, if you had enough data and enough you're digesting or ingesting, excuse me, everything, you could really like hone what is the ideal sales process, and not just what the ideal sales process is for Deel, but specifically if you want to sell David this product, and this product. He's a CEO living in New York with 2 kids, right? Like that's like where I see like this could go someday. And it's not so that we get to win every single deal. It's still, you need a human to do that. It's so when we talk to David in this case, we can really be tailored. I don't get scared when I am talking about something with my wife and then I see an ad for it on my phone. Good. I'd rather see an ad for something I'm looking to buy than something I'm not looking to buy, right? So I think that's where it's going. And I think where I'm thinking of is what are the other things that we can ingest into the models that we've built to keep refining. It's happening at such a rapid pace. And it's not relying on as much human input, right? We all know, anyone that's ever ran a sales team, everyone's handoff notes or their close loss reasons, all the things, they always stink. You always pick the first one that's on the drop down. We got it. Not everyone's non-responsive, right? So I think that will go away and you'll have real life data of why David didn't buy from Deel, even though he did. Thank you. It will be, but you can really get into that data. It will help market these people better. It will help salespeople tailor our messaging to these people. Everything is going to be tailored to a client, specifically to a client, not to an industry, not to a region, but to David, specifically David and what David's looking to buy.
I love that. So you answered in a micro way the thing I am most excited about, and I'll sort of reframe it in a macro.
Yeah.
If I look at the past 15 years I've been in SaaS founder for the past 15 years in a co-founder CEO / doing a lot of selling role.
Sure.
And the entire process, I think, can be defined by the fact that we were trying to fit our buyers to buy on the process, framework, time frame, and cycle of our sales team. And,
yes.
Inevitably, there's some square peg round hole.
That's right.
We're 2 sides trying to achieve an outcome together. Right? And so, great salespeople are trying to make it, right, square peg, square hole. But there's a process to get there. And so I think the biggest thing that's going to happen is that for the first time in history, companies will not be limited by the number of human grade conversations they can have. Right. So it's the age old problem of, hey, we only want our salespeople talking to people who are worth talking to. Flip side is we can only figure out who's worth talking to by talking to them. Right. So like,
that's
how do
right.
we solve that problem? And so I think companies will have 1,000 times as many conversations And if you have unlimited conversation capacity and you can have 1,000 times as many conversations, the biggest shift that you can make is that suddenly you can be selling to the capacity, time frame, and motion that fits the buyer
That's right.
list versus the sales team.
Yeah.
And I think that is a fundamental shift that we're just starting to feel, right? And I think it's going to only get more extreme. It's like I'm almost getting to the point now where if I'm shopping for something, I shop for a lot of software.
Yeah.
Is if I can't get high quality answers in my first interaction, I'm a stone's throw away from just crossing that vendor off the list, right? Like, unless I've heard something exceptional, right? I've gotten a really strong referral or some reason that I'm willing to be more patient.
There's no excuses anymore.
There's no excuses. Yeah, exactly. Buyers are just moving faster. And I think I almost think about it as we used to have to slow everyone down, right? We needed to sort of fit every buyer to look like our lowest common denominator buyer. And now we can actually let our most qualified people sprint, right?
Yeah.
And we can have sort of a variety of motion. So anyway, I love that you went right to what does it look like for the buyer? Because I think that's the biggest shift, the most exciting thing that's going to happen over the next couple of years.
Yeah. It shouldn't be scary to a buyer, right? It should be, I feel like I'm getting the best experience possible, right? For the seller, no one has 100% close rate. In fact, no company has a close rate that is higher than their close loss rate, right? I may be wrong there, but I don't think so, right? So if our close rate is 30%, great. Let's learn from that. But the 70% of the stuff that's not closing, that's what we should be digging deeper into. And that's what used to frustrate me, where it was, there's no way that 70% of those people that didn't buy was because of budget. Like, that was just the first on the drop down list. In fact, at a previous company, I had the Salesforce administrator change the different ones on the drop down just to make budget the lowest one. And guess what happened? It changed to whatever was on top. So
that's awesome.
I think
I love that you did that. That's great.
Right. Like, it's going to help us understand. It's going to inform product of what we should be building. It should, as I said, marketing. It's not going to not touch any organization or any department in the organization.
I don't think we're going to have a drop down pretty soon.
Right. It's going to tell you exactly why you lost.
I know it's a very specific little thing, but it's sort of indicative of the broader change, right?
That's right. It's not going to be a lot of self-selecting from a representative. It's going to be, this is why it lost, and here are the reasons what you should do next time.
Right. The concept that sales reps have had to put up with for so long, which is you do this super high value work, but then you get told over and over and over again, remember to do this other thing, which is just logging the work you did, telling other people what you did, right? It's it is just, of course that's frustrating. So
and not to mention, David, sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah,
not to mention, you're usually asked to do those things after you had to have a bad experience of hitting close loss on something. No one wants to go why.
Right. Yeah, totally.
I want to move on to the next thing.
Totally. And they're thinking like, how could I ever fit what just happened into a drop down to begin with, right?
That's right. That's right.
So, okay, you mentioned automating people. I'm really curious to get your take. I have what I think probably for an AI go-to-market AI agent founder is probably a strange perspective, but I'm curious to hear your thoughts on the role of the AE as a human. And are sort of AEs doomed? Like, potentially some people in software engineering, are they totally safe? Where does the role change? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, that's a good question. And I'm sure whatever I say, I'd like to look back in 6 months and a year and see, if it held any weight or not. I don't think we're doomed. I do wonder, if you look back, when I was graduating, like the mantra at least was, hey, if you're good at talking, you could be in sales, right? So I wonder now, if we look now, will it be people who are just really good at operations that can be in sales, right? Are you going to need I'm saying this tongue in cheek, the slick talking sales guy, or is it going to be so operationally focused? Does the makeup of your typical salesperson change from a sales guy to or girl to a operator type of person, where all you need to do is give me the tools and I'm going to operate my book in a certain type of way, that the selling part of it is actually small. The operations part of it is where I need to be spending my time and effort. So I think there's something to be said about that. I don't know how quick that will happen. I don't know if we could convince some, person in operations that would want to do sales, but I do have this like little theory that I'd love to test of, can I turn someone that's in operations into a salesperson? As let's call it right now, I'm making the numbers up. 75% of my job is talking and doing sales motions. The 25% is operationally. Does that shift over time where it's operationally 75%? The sales type of motions are the 25% of it. That's what I don't know, and I don't know, when and if it will get there. But that's kind of a theory or a hypothesis that I've been, kicking around in my head.
Yeah, super interesting. It's definitely increased. Even today, I see an increase in the, tactical operator seller.
Yeah,
I think is thriving today. I am very pro human sellers.
yeah,
Almost sort of alarmingly so. Maybe it feels alarming because most of the companies playing in my ecosystem are all out there saying,
like
we're
get rid
building
of.
the AI
Yeah,
seller.
yeah,
There's not going to be any sales reps, and we have agents that can give full AI product demos, right?
yep,
Like they could give a full demo of Deel, and I have conversations with people. They say, well, that feels like a threat to a sales rep. I said, well, why is that a threat to a sales rep? Demos are really what's the sales part of a demo? It's deeper discovery,
hmm,
right? I think the best reps are sitting there doing the demo and they're listening to the questions they're being asked,
that's right.
right? They're formulating how that translates to business problems, right? And how the
Yeah,
solution that they're selling can meet those problems. The medium of a demo is sort of just to show
that's
the
right.
answer to the person versus just telling. And so we have voice agents, email agents, and I think it's going to come to this place where at the end of the day, I think the buyer is going to dictate that there's a ton of really great sales reps in the world. Because I
I would
think
agree.
that we keep talking about, can you buy, $100,000 piece of software, PLG, now that you have AI? The answer
Yeah,
is, of course you can.
sure.
The question that's more important is, are buyers going to want to? And
Yeah,
that's where I think that trust, I think solutioning, I think understanding where a company is going, I think understanding the ethos, right? Like I really make value judgments when I'm buying something based
mm,
on, I ask every salesperson that I talk to when I'm looking at a potential vendor. I ask them, hey, could you tell me about your roadmap over the next 3 months? The product may already do all the things I care about. I don't actually necessarily care about the details of their roadmap.
yeah,
What I'm looking for is an AE at this company empowered to understand what the company is
yeah.
building, right?
Nice.
That tells me, right, that I'm buying from someone who I can trust. I'm buying
That's
from a
right.
company who has good communication, right? I don't expect them to give me all the, details that should be non-public.
Sure.
But I'm looking for things like, okay, and really what I'm doing is I'm mitigating risk, right? I'm
Yeah.
saying, hey, let's say we're 6 months in and this product isn't working the way I want it to. What is that conversation going to look like, right? When I reach out to the rep who sold me and I need to escalate something, right? Are they going to have my back? B, are they going to have are they in an organization that has strong communication where things like that are
Right.
valued and
Right.
people will listen to them, right? If they're being communicated effectively about the product and the roadmap, probably they can communicate effectively back, right? So it's those
Yeah.
little signals, and I think that's the stuff that's going to be really important. And it's kind of the trust, the solution engineering, deal making, right, is
Yeah.
still very important. Deal making is still it's a ton of
Absolutely.
nuance. It's a ton of personality. I think there's aspects of that. So anyway, I am super pro human. I do
I am
think you're
too.
right though that operating skills will become
Yeah.
more helpful.
Yeah, Dave, I am too, and I think it's a good point to mention too. Like, I don't want the someone watching this to think it's just too, everything's rosy and we're going to be fine as salespeople. Like, there
Yeah.
will be,
Oh yeah.
job loss. I think there will be. I think it's the company's responsibility to reskill these people. So your job, when I say it's 75-25%, sales versus operators, and it could switch, that doesn't mean it's a whole potentially new group of people that we shift out, we bring in the operators. It
Yeah.
means, can we get these people to turn and crank the dial over to be more operationally focused
Yep.
than the slick talking salesperson?
Yep.
That's what I think companies need to invest in. If they want people doing this, is reskilling their people. What are the skills that we think in a year and 10 years from now people will need, and begin to start that now.
Yep, I totally agree. Yeah, and I think that there's the biggest area that it seems in sales to me that it has some threat from AI are frankly and I don't even want to say roles, because I hear so much, is AI going to replace this job? In sales, it's so multifaceted, right? So the obvious one everyone talks about is the SDR, right? Is AI going to replace the SDR? And the reality is, every SDR I've ever met in my life does 5 or 6 different things that, frankly, are
That's right.
completely unrelated in a lot of ways. And so I do think that there's aspects. I think that, for example, the idea of solving this problem of, hey, we want to protect our AE's time. We only want them to talk to people who are worth talking to. We can't figure that out until we talk to them. That's that sort of inbound SDR doing the pre-qualification 10-minute call, right? That very clearly should not exist.
That's right.
And the thing is, that never should have existed.
That's right.
That motion was basically a roadblock, a speed bump for buyers to protect this finite resource of seller time. And no one in their right mind would look at that sales motion and say, you know what, if I had I had a magic wand, that's exactly how I would do the sales motion, right? And so it's like, okay, great. Well, we have the magic wand that can change that. That doesn't mean that, every person doing that type of job is going to suddenly not have a job, because that person doesn't just do that. They do 10 other things, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's also safe to, get your mind to a place where there's also going to be jobs that we just don't know exist that will come from it, right?
Oh, yeah.
That's okay to believe that. And like, again, not everyone's just going to disappear into doing nothing. There's going to be jobs that just don't exist, departments that don't exist, companies that don't exist. Like, every change in technology has created completely different roles and systems. And we're just seeing it, right? So I still am very much more on the excited part about where we're going than the scared part. But I think there should always be some skepticism as well.
Love it. Jeff, this is fantastic. When I remember this, and for all those listening, my biggest takeaway here is, say you're climbing the mountain, define what the top of the mountain looks like. And then whether you're taking the step yourself, you're empowering other people to take the step, and you're side by side with them, it's one step at a time.
Absolutely.
And keep focusing on the things that matters. Jeff, thank you so much for joining Agents of Revenue. See you all next time.
Thank you.